In this movie, I'll share with you some tips and tricks for working with the spot healing brush. So, for starters, here, let's say I scroll up to the top of this girl's forehead and I decide I want to take out this cluster of freckles using a big brush. So, if I right click inside the image window, you can see that my size is set to 100 pixels. You almost always want the hardness to be 100%, by the way, because otherwise you can end up incorporating too much information around the edge of your brush stroke. So, 100 for the size, 100 for the hardness value. I'll go ahead and press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac in order to hide the panel, and then I'll click right about there, and notice what happens. I end up repeating a nearby detail. And obviously, that is not something I want. That's something you should keep an eye out for. Well, generally, what you don't want to do is press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo and then try again, because chances are good that you will see the same result. What's generally the better approach is to just go ahead and paint away this new repeating detail. So I'll press the left bracket key a few times to reduce the size of my brush, and then I'll just paint over this item to get rid of it. All right, here's another way to work. I'm going to go up to the File menu and choose the Revert command in order to revert to the version of the image that I saved right before I'm recording this movie. So it includes everything that I did in the previous movie. And another way to go at this is to enlarge the brush once again to, let's say, 100 pixels is fine, and then change the blend mode. So in our case, we're working with a very light-skinned girl who has dark blemishes, which means that we always want to lighten details as we paint. So if I go ahead and choose the lighten mode, which just ensures that I keep the light stuff and I paint over like so, then I'm just going to lighten that area. And there's no way I'm going to replicate this thing inside my cursor right now because it's darker than the skin around it. So you might want to fool around with the blend mode. If you're working with a dark-skinned person who has bright blemishes, try darken instead. Or you can also get darkening effects with multiply and brightening effects with screen. So for example, another way for me to get bright results is to choose the screen mode here, and then I'll just go ahead and zoom out a little bit, and I'll scroll to this region right here. And this isn't necessarily something that I'd want to retouch away, but I just want you to see how things are going to behave. If I were to set the mode to normal and paint a big swath like so, then I'm going to get some weird repeated details inside this region, and it's going to look like something's wrong with her nose. Whereas, I'll go ahead and press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that change, and I'll change the mode to screen this time around, and I'll paint that very same brush stroke. We end up with a much smoother effect. To my mind, it's unnecessary, however, so I'll just go ahead and press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to undo that change. Then I'll reduce my cursor and perhaps take out these details right there. All right, now let's say that you take a look at the image, as you should, of course. You should evaluate the image as you're working. Even, by the way, it's a good idea to get up and leave, go get a cup of coffee or drink of water or whatever you need to do, and then come back to the image with a fresh eye, because you're going to see different details. And you may also see that you've gone too far in certain areas. So, for example, I'm going to go ahead and turn off that healing layer, and I'll see that I've gotten rid of a ton of freckles here. And while pimples and that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff nobody wants to be saddled with, freckles don't really fall into that same camp. So again, I want to be able to focus on her features, but I don't want her to look like she doesn't have freckles. So for example, let's say I decide I want to bring back this freckle on her nose, which is a pretty cute detail. Well, then I'll just bear in mind where it is, and then I'll turn that healing layer back on, make sure it's selected as well. And because it's on a separate layer, I can erase it away using the eraser tool, which, as you can see, you can get by pressing the E key. And then I'm going to right-click inside the image. I've cranked the size value up to 60 pixels. The hardness is 100%. That's fine. And I'll just go ahead and erase away the healing and bring back that freckle. Now, in doing so, I brought back a couple of things I don't want. So I'll go ahead and switch back to the Spot Healing Brush tool. And incidentally, that keyboard shortcut of J, we used to joke that it made sense if you thought of healing as being surgery, and you misspelled surgery using a J instead of a G. I don't know how funny that is or how helpful it is either, but anyway, it helped me at one point in time. All right, now I'm going to paint away this detail and paint away this guy as well. And so these are things that I want to see disappear for good. But now, let's say I just want to diminish that freckle a little bit, not totally get rid of it. Then I'll just go ahead and click on it with a big, huge brush like so. And I still have my blend mode set to screen, which actually isn't what I want in this case. So I'll press Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac to get rid of that change. And I'll switch to normal instead. And now I'll go ahead and click, and you can see that totally gets rid of that freckle. Let's say you want to split the difference. You want to bring it halfway back. Well, then here's the trick. Anytime you apply a modification on a pixel level basis inside Photoshop, and that includes anything you might do with these painting tools in the second section of the toolbox, then right after you apply the change, you can go up to the Edit menu and choose the Fade command. And notice it reads Fade Spot Healing Brush. And now I can go ahead and dial the opacity value down to 50%, let's say, and I get a 50-50 mix of that most recent modification and the original detail, at which point I can go ahead and click OK. Now, as long as you don't do anything else, you can still change your mind. I could go back to the Edit menu and once again choose Fade Spot Healing Brush. And notice the opacity value is still there at 50%. I could change it to 30% instead, or I could raise it, let's say, to 60%. And because the preview checkbox is turned on, I'll see my modifications in the larger image window. And if I like what I see, I can click OK. But if you do anything else, for example, if I switch back to the rectangular marquee tool and I select some portion of the image, like so, and then I click off of it to deselect the image, then my spot healing brush adjustment is no longer the most recent modification, and as a result, if I go to the Edit menu, I'll see that the Fade command is dimmed. So just remember that it's only available immediately after painting a brushstroke. And this trick, by the way, can be very useful when painting away wrinkles. So for example, if I were to switch back to the spot healing brush, and I'll reduce the size of my cursor, and then I decide to do that thing I warned you not to do in the previous movie, I paint away your smile line. Well, if I kind of want to paint away her smile line, but I don't want it to totally go away, then I could go up to the Edit menu and once again choose Fade Spot Healing Brush. And then I could reduce the opacity to something like 20% so that I'm barely painting it away. And then I could click OK in order to apply that change. And the result is that we get most of that smile line back. And those are a few tips and tricks for working with the spot healing brush here inside Photoshop.